I should have turned around the moment the pavement ended. But when you're 3 hours behind schedule, your phone battery's at 15%, and the robotic voice in your GPS says, continue straight, you don't argue. At least, I didn't. The weird part, I've driven this route before. Not often, but enough to know there's no road here. Just fields, a scattering of barns, and eventually a sleepy town where I'd planned to grab dinner before heading home. Yet, here it was, a narrow strip of cracked asphalt stretching into the horizon, lined with trees so thick they swallowed the fading daylight. No signs, no houses, just there, like it had always been. Okay, I muttered, tightening my grip on the steering wheel. Shortcut it is. That was mistake number 1. The trees closed in quickly, their branches arching overhead like skeletal fingers. The GPS kept chirping cheerfully, as if nothing was off. Continue for 2 miles. 2 miles of what? The road wasn't even on Google Maps. When I'd zoomed in earlier, there was nothing but green. Forest. Empty space. I cracked the window. The air smelled wrong, damp and heavy, like moss after a storm. But the storm had passed hours ago. The rest of the world smelled like summer. This smelled like something rotting deep underground. Then, the sound. At first, I thought it was the engine. A soft hum, pulsing in and out like a heartbeat. But when I killed the radio and rolled the window lower, it grew louder. Not mechanical, organic, almost like breathing. I told myself it was the wind. What else could it be? Except the trees weren't moving. Not even a twitch. I laughed nervously, because what else do you do when your brain starts writing horror scripts without your permission? In half a mile, turn left, the GPS chirped. I glanced at the screen. Sure enough, a little arrow pointed to a road ahead. Except, no surprise here, there was no road. Just more trees. That's when I saw her. A woman, standing dead center in the lane. She wore a pale dress that fluttered like paper in the stale air. Barefoot, head tilted, as if listening for something I couldn't hear. I slammed the brakes so hard the seatbelt bit into my chest. The car lurched, tires screeching against the cracked asphalt. Heart in my throat, I blinked. She was gone. No rustle of leaves, no sound of retreating footsteps. Just empty road, stretching ahead like nothing had happened. I sat there, gripping the wheel, pulse hammering so loud I swore it shook the car. Maybe I imagined her. Long day, low blood sugar, eyes playing tricks in the dim light. That had to be it. Right. I shifted into drive. The road was swallowing the last sliver of sun, and my battery icon had turned red. I needed to keep moving. The GPS chimed cheerfully again. Turn left now. I slowed, scanning the tree line. And then I saw it. A gap in the woods that hadn't been there a second ago. A dirt track, barely wide enough for my car, cutting into the forest. I swear to you, it wasn't there before. But the GPS insisted, flashing its little arrow like a lifeline. Turn. I should have kept going, should have hit reverse and floored it back to the highway. Instead, I turned, and that was mistake number 2. As the trees swallowed me whole, my headlights caught something ahead, something that made me slam the brakes again. Only this time, I wasn't sure I'd survive what I saw. I slammed on the brakes so hard the tires skidded in the dirt, throwing up a cloud that hung like smoke in the beams of my headlights. Something stood in the middle of the track. At first, I thought it was another person. Maybe the same woman as before. But as the dust settled, I realized it wasn't. It was a signpost. A tall, splintered wooden pole with an arrow nailed to it, pointing left. No words, no markings, just a crude arrow, drawn in thick black paint like a child might scrawl with a brush. And nailed just beneath it, was a shoe. A single, mud-caked sneaker dangling by its laces, swaying slightly as if a breeze had brushed through. Except the air was still. I stared at it, trying to breathe through the weight pressing on my chest. Who puts a sign like this in the middle of nowhere? And why the hell would anyone nail a shoe to it? My fingers itched to grab my phone, call someone, anyone. But when I unlocked the screen, the signal bars were gone. No service. The GPS, still chirping like an idiot. Turn left. Turn left. I killed the engine for a second, hoping to hear, I don't know, night sounds. Crickets, wind, something. But there was nothing. No birds, no insects, no distant hum of cars. Just that soft, almost imperceptible breathing sound again, like the earth itself was inhaling under the tires. I started the engine back up because sitting there felt worse than moving forward. The headlights fell on the arrow, the shadow stretching long and crooked across the dirt. It pointed to a side path I hadn't noticed before, a narrow trail cutting deeper into the woods. My gut screamed no. Every survival instinct I had was clawing at my brain. But the GPS. Turn left, it repeated, voice smooth, calm, and absolutely certain. I took the turn. The trail was barely wide enough for the car, branches clawing at the sides, scraping the paint with nails of bark. My headlights carved tunnels of light through the darkness, catching glimpses of things I didn't want to see: broken fence posts, shattered glass, once even what looked like the rusted frame of a tricycle lying on its side. Then something darted across the road. I hit the brakes again, heart in my throat, expecting a deer. But when I looked, nothing. Just a shadow melting into the trees. Jesus Christ, I muttered, knuckles white on the wheel. And that's when I saw the lights. Faint at first, like distant lanterns through the fog. Then brighter, yellow and warm, flickering between the trunks. Relief surged through me. A house, civilization, maybe even a gas station if I was lucky. I pressed the accelerator, dirt spitting under the tires, heart pounding with something that felt like hope. The trail widened as I drove, opening into a clearing. And there it was, a cabin. Old, weather-beaten, but alive with the glow of lamplight spilling from the windows. Smoke curled from a chimney into the night sky. I parked, engine idling, and stared. Something about it felt wrong. Maybe it was the silence. A place with lights should hum with life, voices, movement, a radio in the background. But this, nothing, not a single sound. I killed the engine, stepped out. Gravel crunched under my boots as I walked toward the porch. The air smelled of smoke and something sweet, like burnt sugar. Hello, I called, voice cracking more than I wanted. No answer. I climbed the steps slowly, each creak echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. The door was slightly ajar, lamplight pooling through the crack. I pushed it open. The first thing that hit me was the heat. Like stepping into an oven. My glasses fogged, and when they cleared, I saw the source, a fire roaring in the hearth at the far end of the room. The second thing, the smell. That sweet, burning smell wasn't sugar. It was meat. On the mantel above the fire, 3 objects hung from rusty nails. Shoes. Different sizes, different colors. Each blackened at the soles, as if they'd been too close to the flames. I swallowed hard and took a step back. The floor groaned under my weight. Hello. I tried again, softer this time. Still nothing. Then, something moved. A shape flickered in the corner of my eye. I spun, heart hammering, and there she was. The woman from the road. Standing in the doorway to what looked like a kitchen. Same pale dress. Same bare feet. Her head still tilted, as if listening to a sound only she could hear. Except now, she was smiling. A thin, sharp curve of lips that didn't reach her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice like honey over broken glass. I opened my mouth, but no words came. She stepped closer, and I saw it. Her feet weren't just bare. They were bleeding, little rivulets of red trailing behind her on the wooden floor. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Her smile widened. Before I could move, she reached into her dress pocket and pulled out something small and metallic, something that gleamed in the firelight. And that's when I realized, she wasn't alone. She wasn't alone. I didn't hear them at first. The creak of the floorboards masked the subtle movement in the shadows behind her. But as she stepped closer, 2 more figures emerged from the kitchen doorway. Men, both barefoot, both in clothes that looked like they belonged to another decade, plaid shirts worn soft with age, suspenders hanging loose at their sides. Their faces were half hidden in the glow from the hearth, but I saw enough to know their smiles didn't reach their eyes either. "Evening," one of them rasped, voice low and raw, like it had been dragged over gravel. I took a step back, my heel hitting the edge of the rug. My mind screamed run, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. I'm lost," I stammered, forcing words out past the knot in my throat. "GPS, wrong turn, I just need help," the woman finished for me, head tilting even further, so far I wondered if something in her neck had snapped. "We can help." Her fingers tightened around the small metal object in her hand. It wasn't a knife, like I'd feared, it was a key. An old-fashioned brass key, tarnished with age. She held it up between 2 fingers like an offering. "You're far from home," she murmured, stepping closer. The men followed, slow and steady, like predators who know the prey has nowhere to run. I forced myself to glance past them, to the back door. "If I could just," the woman's voice cut through my thoughts. "It's not safe out there after dark." Her words slithered into me like a cold draft. My skin prickled, because she was right about one thing. Outside, the night pressed against the windows like a living thing, thick and suffocating. The clearing looked different now, darker, emptier, like it had swallowed the trail I'd driven in on. You should stay, the other man said, his voice like a growl buried deep in his chest. Rest, warm up. His eyes flicked to the fire, and for a moment I thought I saw something move inside it. Not the usual flicker of flames, but a shape, curved, sinewy, almost like a ribcage curling in the heat. Nope, no way, my brain was just twisting shadows because it wanted out of this nightmare. I can't, I said, words tripping over themselves. People are expecting me. The woman laughed softly. The sound crawled under my skin. No one expects you here. And then, from somewhere behind the house, a sound split the silence. A bell, deep, metallic, and slow. It tolled once, vibrating through the floorboards under my feet. Then again, and with each toll, the air seemed to thicken, pressing against my lungs like wet cloth. The men stiffened. The woman's smile widened. It's time, she whispered. The key in her hand glinted as she turned and placed it on the mantel, right between two of the charred shoes. Then she looked back at me, her eyes shining like wet stones. Stay still, she said softly. They'll find you faster if you move. Before I could ask, the bell tolled a third time, and something shifted in the air, like the world had tilted a few degrees to the left. The shadows along the walls seemed to stretch, elongate, curling toward the corners of the room like black vines reaching for the ceiling. And then the lights went out. The fire didn't die, it roared higher, casting the room in a feverish orange glow. But the lamps, gone. Darkness swallowed everything beyond the hearth. And in that flickering half-light, I saw them. Shapes, moving beyond the windows. Too many shapes. Tall, thin silhouettes gliding through the clearing without sound. I backed away, heart in my throat, my pulse pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. What is this? I rasped, eyes darting between the woman and the shadows outside. What the hell is going on? The woman didn't answer. She was humming now, soft, tuneless, but with a rhythm that made my stomach knot. The men were moving too, slow circles around me, their bare feet whispering against the floorboards. I made a decision then. Stupid or not, I wasn't waiting to find out what time meant to these people. I lunged for the door. One of the men moved fast, faster than I thought possible. His hand shot out, fingers grazing my sleeve as I ripped free and barreled onto the porch. Cold night air slammed into me like a wall. My breath came in ragged bursts as I leapt down the steps and sprinted toward the car. The clearing looked wrong, bigger, like the trees had stepped back, giving the night more room to breathe. And those shapes, they were closer now. I couldn't see faces, just elongated limbs and heads cocked at angles that made my bones ache to look at. I didn't stop, didn't dare. I fumbled for my keys, slammed into the car, and twisted the ignition so hard it nearly broke. The engine roared to life, headlights slicing through the dark. That's when I saw her, standing at the edge of the clearing, where the dirt path vanished into the trees. The woman, still smiling, but her head wasn't tilted anymore. It was wrong, too far to the side, hanging by a thread like a broken marionette. And in the glare of my headlights, I saw her eyes clearly for the first time. They weren't human. They glowed, not bright, not like a flashlight, just a faint, molten shimmer, like embers buried in ash. She raised her hand slowly, and for a moment I thought she was waving. But then I saw what dangled from her fingers. The key, the one from the mantel. She dropped it into the dirt, and all around me, the shapes began to move. The first one stepped into the beam of my headlights, and what I saw was enough to make me slam the car into reverse so hard the tires screamed. Except, there was no road behind me anymore. There was no road behind me. Where the dirt trail had been just minutes ago, there was only forest, thick, black, endless. My headlights caught trees packed so tightly together they looked like prison bars. I slammed the gear into drive, tires spitting gravel as I swung the wheel toward the clearing's far edge. If there was any way out, I'd find it. But the shapes, oh God, the shapes. They moved in unison now, sliding across the ground without a sound. No footsteps, no crunch of leaves, just motion, fluid and wrong, like marionettes cut loose from their strings but still dancing. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles ached, heart pounding like it wanted to punch its way out of my chest. I floored it, engine howling, headlights swinging wild arcs through the darkness. And then, something slammed into the side of the car. The impact jolted me sideways, glass shuddering as metal screamed against wood. For a split second, I saw it, a figure, pale and tall, its arms too long, its face a smear of features stretched in the wrong places. It didn't fall when I hit it. It clung, fingers hooking into the frame like iron claws. I swerved, trying to shake it off, but another shape lunged from the dark, then another. They weren't human. They weren't anything. The tires spun in loose dirt. My car fishtail-ed, skidding toward the treeline. I yanked the wheel, slammed the gas, nothing. The engine roared, but the car barely moved. Something was holding it, hands, dozens of them, pale fingers gripping the undercarriage, the wheel wells, the doors. I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the flashlight from the glove compartment, threw the door open, and ran. The cold hit like a fist, sucking the air from my lungs. The clearing seemed bigger now, stretching into black infinity. The cabin's windows glowed faintly behind me, but everything else was dark. I ran anyway, feet pounding dirt, breath ripping through my throat like glass shards. I didn't know where I was going, I just knew I had to move. The shapes followed, silent, relentless, sliding through the dark like smoke with bones. And then, voices, ahead, cutting through the chaos like a thread of hope, this way. I skidded to a stop, chest heaving, and saw her. The woman from the cabin. She stood at the edge of the trees, pale dress glowing like a ghost in the moonlight, hair spilling over her shoulders. Her head was straight now, neck whole, eyes wide and bright, not ember bright, but human. She beckoned to me, frantic. Come on, hurry. I didn't think, didn't question. I ran to her, crashing through brush, the shapes melting after me like living shadows. She grabbed my wrist the moment I reached her, her grip ice cold and iron strong. This way, she hissed, dragging me through a narrow gap in the trees. Branches tore at my clothes, my skin, but I kept moving, driven by raw survival instinct. We didn't stop until the clearing was gone, swallowed by the forest behind us. My lungs burned, my legs shook like they'd been hollowed out. I collapsed against a tree, sucking air like a drowning man. What the hell were those things? I gasped. She didn't answer right away. Just stood there, listening, watching the dark between the trees like it was alive. Finally, she said, "They're what happens when you take the wrong road." I stared at her, throat dry. What does that even mean? Her eyes flicked to mine, and for a heartbeat, they looked almost sad. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. "But now that you have." She reached into her pocket again, and for one gut-twisting second I thought she'd pull out the key. But it wasn't the key this time. It was a map, old, yellowed, edges frayed like something salvaged from a fire. She unfolded it slowly, the paper crackling in the cold air. "This place isn't on your maps because it doesn't want to be," she said, voice low. "It moves, it shifts, roads open for those it chooses, and close behind them." I shook my head, trying to hold on to reason, logic, anything. "That doesn't make sense." She gave me a look sharp enough to cut bone. "Does the road you came in on still exist?" I opened my mouth, closed it, because I already knew the answer. She stepped closer, holding the map between us. I saw symbols I didn't recognize, jagged lines, circles scrawled in ink so dark it seemed to drink the light. One word repeated over and over along the edges, written in a language I couldn't read. "You can still leave," she said. "But not alone." Something in her tone froze the blood in my veins. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the forest breathed. That's the only way I can describe it. A slow, massive inhalation that pulled at the leaves, the soil, even the air in my lungs. The trees shuddered, their branches arching toward us like claws. The woman's grip tightened on my wrist. "Run." We ran, again, crashing through the dark, roots snagging my feet, branches whipping my face raw. I didn't know where she was leading me. I didn't care. Anything was better than what was behind us. We burst into another clearing, a smaller one this time, choked with fog that clung to the ground like spilled milk. In the center stood something that made my stomach flip. A door, just a door frame, freestanding, with no walls around it. Weathered wood, peeling paint, hinges rusted to hell. It shouldn't have been there. It shouldn't have been anywhere. The woman shoved me toward it. "Go." I stopped dead. "You want me to? What? Walk through that? Are you insane?" Her eyes burned into mine. "It's the only way out." I looked back at the trees. The fog was thickening, shapes flickering inside it, edges sharp and wrong. I looked at the door again. And then I heard it, the bell, tolling again, deep and slow, vibrating through my bones. The woman grabbed my shoulders, shoving me harder this time. Now, I stumbled forward, heart clawing at my ribs. And then I saw it. Through the doorframe. Not forest, not clearing, a road, empty, wet with rain, stretching into the night under a pale yellow streetlight. It looked normal, safe, almost. I turned to her, breathless. What about you? She smiled then, a small, sad curve of lips. I was never leaving, and before I could ask what she meant, something yanked her backward into the fog. Her scream split the air, raw and sharp, then cut off like a severed wire. I spun, reaching for her, but the fog surged like a living thing, swallowing her whole. And as it closed in on me too, the only choice I had left was to step through the door. Into something far worse than I could have imagined. I stepped through the doorframe. One heartbeat, I was drowning in fog thick enough to choke on. The next, I stood in silence under the jaundiced glow of a single streetlight. The rain hit first, a fine, cold mist clinging to my skin, seeping into my clothes. The air smelled of wet asphalt and something faintly metallic, like old pennies. Behind me, the doorframe was gone. Just empty road stretching into the dark. I turned in a slow circle, pulse hammering, but the clearing, the cabin, the fog, they'd all vanished. It was just a road. A two-lane strip of cracked pavement, glistening with rain, flanked by skeletal trees. No signs, no houses, no sound but the faint hiss of drizzle on leaves. And then I saw the car. My car, parked 20 feet ahead, engine idling, headlights burning two pale holes into the night. For a second, relief hit me like a drug. I sprinted toward it, shoes slapping against the wet pavement, throat burning with a half-sob of laughter. I yanked the door open, slid into the driver's seat, and froze. The key was already in the ignition. That shouldn't have been possible. I still had my keys in my pocket. I checked. Yes, cold metal pressed against my thigh through damp denim. So whose key was in the ignition? I didn't get to finish that thought. The passenger door creaked open. I spun, heart punching my ribs, and saw her, the woman. She slid into the seat like she'd been there all along, her pale dress soaking wet, clinging to her like a second skin. Water dripped from her hair in dark rivulets down her face, but her smile was dry. You made it, she whispered, voice soft as silk. I pressed myself against the door, every nerve screaming. What the hell is going on? Where are we? She tilted her head, that same awful angle that made my stomach knot. We're almost home. And then she reached across the console, fingers brushing the gear shift. Before I slapped her hand away and bolted, I tumbled out of the car into the rain, my boots skidding on slick pavement. The night closed in around me, heavy and suffocating, but I didn't care. I ran. The road stretched endlessly ahead, slick and black under the faint streetlight glow. I ran until my lungs were on fire, until my legs screamed with each pounding step. And then I saw it. Up ahead, in the dim wash of yellow light, a figure stood in the middle of the road. Not her, me. I stopped so fast I nearly fell. My breath tore out of me in ragged bursts as I stared at myself. Same jacket, same soaked jeans, same wide-eyed panic frozen on a face I barely recognized. It stood perfectly still, head cocked at an angle that wasn't human. And then it smiled. I staggered backward, heart slamming against bone, bile rising in my throat. The thing took one slow step toward me, bare feet slapping wet pavement. And behind it, more shapes appeared. All of them, me. Dozens. Some standing, some crouched, some crawling on all fours like animals, faces stretched in grotesque parodies of mine. Their mouths opened in unison, and the sound that spilled out wasn't a scream. It was laughter, soft at first, like wind through dead leaves. Then louder, layering over itself in a manic chorus that clawed into my skull. I ran. Again. I didn't think. I couldn't. Just raw terror propelling me forward as the laughter chased me down the road, swelling, multiplying until it was everywhere, inside me, outside me, rattling my bones like loose coins in a tin can. The trees on either side leaned in, branches arching overhead, knitting together until the sky vanished. The road narrowed, cracked, buckled under my feet like something alive. And then, I saw the door again. Standing in the middle of the road, its peeling frame haloed in the sick glow of another streetlight. Beyond it, I could just make out a flicker of something that looked like my apartment. Home. I hurled myself toward it, hope blazing like a match in a hurricane. Only to stop dead when I saw her. She stood in front of the door, dress plastered to her skin, eyes burning that soft ember glow again. Her smile had gone razor sharp. "You're not listening," she said. Her voice wasn't honey now. It was bone, brittle and cracking. "I told you, you don't leave alone." Behind her, the laughter swelled. The shapes closed in, filling the road like a tide of broken mirrors, all wearing my face. I shook my head, backing away, throat raw. "Why me? Why? What do you want?" Her smile widened, teeth too white in the dark. "It's not about what we want," she whispered. "It's about what the road wants." And then the pavement beneath my feet split open. The last thing I saw before the ground swallowed me was the door falling backward, into a black so deep it looked like the end of the world. I didn't remember pulling over. My hands were still clenched around the steering wheel, white-knuckled, when I realized the engine wasn't running anymore. The night pressed against the windows like a living thing, breathing cold air through the cracks, whispering to me in the dark. I told myself to move, to get out, to do something. But every muscle in my body was locked, frozen under the weight of that voice still echoing in my skull. "Come find me." Those 3 words felt heavier than the car itself. I took a breath, shaky, shallow, barely enough to feel real, and opened the door. The night hit me like a wave, sharp and metallic, like the scent of blood in the air after a fight. My flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, revealing only trees, endless trees. And then I saw it. The road, or at least, what was left of it. I had driven off the map into something that shouldn't exist, but now even the dirt path behind me was gone. Vanished. The car sat stranded in a clearing that hadn't been there before, surrounded by forest that felt too old, too silent, too aware. I whispered out loud, maybe to the night, maybe to myself. "This isn't real. This can't be real." That's when I heard it. A sound so faint it barely touched my ears, like laughter. Not joyful laughter. It was soft, broken, like someone who had forgotten how to be happy but was still trying. And it was coming from ahead. I should have run. I knew I should have run. But I didn't. I walked forward, because something deep inside me whispered that I'd already gone too far to turn back. Dash dash dash. The trees closed in as I followed that sound, every step crunching dead leaves that weren't there a second ago. The beam of my flashlight began to dim, flickering like a dying heartbeat, until I was moving through shadow more than light. And then, the forest opened up again. A house stood there, an old farmhouse, leaning to one side as if exhausted from holding secrets for too long. Its windows were black, glassless voids. The front door hung slightly open, as though it had been waiting for me. I couldn't breathe. My instinct screamed, "Don't go inside," but my legs didn't care. They carried me forward, up the rotting porch steps, into the yawning dark. The smell hit me first, damp wood, rust, and something sour, something wrong. My flashlight gave one last pathetic flicker, and died. For a moment, I stood there blind, heart hammering so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. And then, like the night wanted to make sure I saw, a single bulb overhead flickered to life, bathing the hallway in a sickly yellow glow. That's when I saw the photographs. They lined the walls, crooked frames coated in dust. Faces stared out from behind cracked glass. Dozens of them, men, women, children, all smiling, all hollow-eyed, and in every single photo, was me. I stumbled backward so fast I nearly fell, choking on my own breath. My mind clawed for reason, logic, anything, but none of it fit. These weren't fakes. They were real, aged with time, my face frozen in decades I'd never lived. I wanted to scream, but something deeper than fear kept my mouth shut. Because suddenly, I wasn't alone. A shadow stretched across the far wall. Slowly, impossibly, it detached itself and stepped forward, forming into a shape that made my stomach twist. It was me, my own face staring back, pale and worn, eyes like black wells that swallowed the light. And when it spoke, the voice was my own, older, broken, layered with echoes. "You found it," it whispered. "You always do." I shook my head so hard my vision blurred. No, this isn't. "It's time," it said, cutting me off. "You've been running for so long." And then it smiled. God help me, it smiled like it had been waiting centuries just for this moment. "Now," it said, "you take my place." Dash dash dash. The walls began to move. I swear they did, closing in, groaning like bones grinding together. The photographs trembled in their frames, faces shifting, melting, becoming shadows. I ran, or at least I tried. My feet sank into the floorboards like they were turning to tar, every step heavier, slower, until I wasn't sure if I was moving at all. The other me, the thing, didn't chase me. It just watched, smiling, as if it already knew the ending. Come find me. The words rippled through the house, through my mind, through every breath I had left. And then, darkness. When I woke up, I was in my car. The engine was running. The road stretched out ahead, clean and perfect under a bright morning sun. Birds chirped. A cool breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of pine and something sweet, like honeysuckle. For a long time, I just sat there, hands gripping the wheel, heart pounding like it wanted to burst through my chest. My phone buzzed on the seat beside me. A text, from an unknown number. It said, "Thank you, drive safe." I laughed, a sharp, cracked sound that felt too big for my throat. Because when I looked up at the rearview mirror, my reflection was smiling back at me. But it wasn't my smile. And now, I can't stop driving. I don't know where I'm going, and I don't think it matters anymore. Because the GPS keeps whispering new directions in a voice that sounds so much like mine. And every time I try to stop, I hear it, soft, patient, certain. You always find the road. So if you're listening to this, and your GPS ever tells you to turn down a road that isn't on any map, don't. Just don't. Because once you do, there's no coming back.